sing. Are you ready?
I always wanted to try something like that. Well, today on the podcast, what does a podcaster, community leader, author, and most important, dad? That is my guest today, Anthony Hayes, next on the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad Podcast. Welcome to the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad Podcast. Hey, my name is Joe Foley, and I'm a dad and a parent just like you. I want to say thank you for being here. I know as a dad and a parent, our time is limited, so thank you for listening. And if this is your first time, welcome. This is a podcast about having a conversation about being a dad, any issues and topics related to being a parent and a dad. This will be a weekly podcast dedicated to some sense of community for dads and parents. There'll be interviews, topics about being a dad and a good parent. We're all going through the same stuff. I love being a dad, and I love the journey. I know dad stuff and parent stuff's not easy. I am not an expert, just a dad on a journey trying to take one day at a time in this crazy world. My guest today on the podcast is Anthony Hayes. He's an author of the book Science of Being and also a podcaster over at Podcast Discovery Center. He's one of the community leaders in the Facebook group. The most important thing, he's a dad. Also, please pardon the audio. I just had a little bit of technical difficulty with my internet last night, and some of the audio may be kind of a little wonky when it comes to listening, but majority of it is great content from Anthony. So let's jump right into the interview. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Joe, man. Great to talk to you again.
Tell me a little about yourself and about your podcast. I know you're also a podcaster, too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm 32. I reside in sunny South Florida. And like you said, I am a father. My daughter's 2 years old now, which is totally awesome. So I know you can relate to the terrible twos. Yeah, and I do have a podcast. I started up podcasting about going on 3 years, actually, in December. And, I kind of stumbled into podcasting. I didn't really know what it was, and I did not really have a direction at first. I kind of was just learning about it, kind of seeing what podcasting was all about. I love to listen to them. I love the content other people were putting out, and I was like, when I found out that I could do that, or anybody could do that, I was very intrigued by the process, and I started podcasting that day, and that was 3 years ago. And the 3 years have been quite a learning curve, and definitely still learning every day with the technology and the hiccups I know we all go through on a daily basis. So, in the process, my partner and I, Scott Doucette, we were talking one day and we're like, yo, let's start a podcast community so we can learn and other people can learn and we can exchange information, and I think it'll just be a cool like venture. And that was 9 months ago. It's almost been a year actually since we started that, and we've grown by like 100 members a month, so we're at like a little over 1,000 members, and it's been totally awesome, man. Just to not only learn from other people, but to be able to provide any knowledge or little knowledge that I think I do have, because I'm in it too. I'm learning about it too. So anything that we can do for everybody is our pleasure, really.
I first met you down at Podcast MidAtlantic, and you kind of intrigued me. You're very friendly, and I really do appreciate that because it was my really first podcast conference, and then I didn't realize when a bunch of podcasters get together, how friendly they actually are. And I did meet you and your girl. I think it's your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you met you guys, and I really appreciate that because it made me feel comfortable within the group, and I really do appreciate that.
Oh yeah, it was such a great time, and that was actually my first podcast conference too. So and unfortunately I didn't get to meet everybody, which I would have loved to, but I really, next year's a different story. But it was definitely great to chop it up with you there, and glad to be here with you today. So it's all about that connection, man. That first connection, it goes a long way, you know?
Yeah, it does actually. I have a question about a little about your book, the author, the science of being. What is that about?
Yeah, well, the science of being is basically a 10-year journey in my life through major clinical depression. So the book itself really started to take place over a decade ago when I started documenting my emotions and all the craziness that was going on in my life at that time. And since I started writing it, it was basically a memoir type genre, but because it wasn't the traditional memoir length, according to writing and publishing standards, I decided to kind of pivot the book into more of a self-development book. So what I did was I talked about my own journeys and struggles with my emotions, and then how other people can learn from my mistakes, or see the everything that since those instances have happened, see everything that I've been able to accomplish, or the change in mindset that I've been able to develop. And that's the science of being is ultimately the science of me being myself.
Sometimes it's difficult to be yourself in certain situations, and being yourself, to actually be yourself, and it's very important.
Yeah, definitely. Finding your authentic self. And I know you heard that term a lot at the podcast conference, being your authentic self. And I think a lot of people have difficulty doing that, myself included. There's days where I'm like, oh, I don't know who I'm going to be today. Am I going to be, super dad, or am I going to be podcaster guy? We all have these hats we put on. Am I going to be worker guy? I go to work today. So I think in essence, we all have struggles with that, being authentic. But at the end of the day, if you can really hone in on whatever that skill is, or that passion, or that, I think just doing, being able to find your authentic self. I think that's an ever evolving thing. I don't think you can't just wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm gonna be this guy, or I was meant to be this guy. I think it's something we learn every day, and I'm sure you've had similar instances in your life, being a father and getting into podcasting and all these different journeys we take. But the most important thing is you just follow what your gut tells you, and if it's to do these things and to be that way, then that's who you really are deep down.
Well, it's true. Being a dad, I guess you understand that we are always busy. It's always busy, 24/7. I mean, it's the greatest job, but it also can be the toughest job at times when you have a million things going a million different directions.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know when to stop. I have to sometimes have to tell myself, okay, you need to sleep or you need to eat, because you need to refuel because you got another couple hours to go. You can't stop, man. It's 24/7. You're right.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the thing is not to have your cell phone by your bed or check Twitter at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. But I happen to roll over and I see Anthony putting out a tweet or a Facebook post. I'm like, this guy, do you ever sleep?
Yeah. Yes and no. It's funny because I went through a time where I actually had insomnia, bouts of it, not at extended periods of time, but I would go like a couple days here and there over the years, and I literally would not sleep for days, and it was a terrible situation to be in. But I've since been able to break that whole insomnia thing. But I think what you're referring to is just the me not being able to shut off at this point, just because I always want to, what new project can I start, or because I blog. You mentioned I blog. We're talking about being dads. I love to blog about my daughter. So if I'm going to bed and then I'm like, oh man, something great happened today. It sparked a little bit of writing something to write about, I'll like start blogging in the middle of the night or something. So that's what I'm doing at that point. I probably got inspired to crank out a blog post. I think I did that the other night though. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I popped out of bed and I was like, oh man, I had an epiphany. I'm gonna write something. So that's kind of how my creativity comes. It comes in spurts.
There's one question I was reading your bio on your website, and I really was interested in. Is you travel the world as a professional DJ and a breakdancer. I found that very interesting. I don't know if you want to talk about that. I just thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it is, and it's something that I always forget to include in my conversations with people, because well, first of all, it was a while ago. It was about 10 years ago. But it was such a huge part of my life, and I actually wish I would bring it up because it's kind of it was a cool adventure, and I started doing that. I was 13 years old, and I did it all the way through, I think I was about 21. Yeah, I was about 21 when I called it quits, but yeah, I got to go to Puerto Rico and all over the United States doing that, and doing parties and corporate events for big companies, and being in the entertainment industry was truly a cool experience. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing that up, because I always forget to bring that up for some reason. I don't know why.
It just stood out to me. It just that one thing. I'm like, I gotta ask you that question because it stood out to me.
Yeah. It was cool.
Back to being a father. I guess. What is your biggest struggle as being a dad? What do you struggle with as a dad?
Yeah, that would be my emotional response. Any emotional response that I have, because it's a problem for me to begin with, because of the depression and the anxiety and stuff. But that initial response or reaction with my emotions when it comes to handling situations definitely has been the most difficult task, and it continues to be. Trying to shift that energy or that emotion into a positive direction is definitely been a huge undertaking. As I'm sure it is for everybody else. I'm no different. I just happen to have a little bit of a more difficult time. But just trying not to respond with anger, or trying to find ways to learn or teach things, and kind of just figuring out how to be a dad, because I've never been a dad before, and all the books I've read on being a dad they're pretty like common sense, and they helped me none whatsoever. So I think I mean, really, all those books out there are kind of wacky in that sense. They didn't really do anything for me. I think you just got to learn it and live it. And for me, mostly, I noticed that my instincts kind of took over, and everything that I remember when I was a child growing up, that inadvertently I was being taught, I'm now passing those traditions or those lessons on to my daughter, and it kind of it was instinct. It didn't really it didn't really happen one way or the other. It was just like this situation. Wait, I feel like I've went through this before. Oh yeah, my dad used to do that with me, and it was like one of those lights went off, and it was a pretty cool experience to be able to do this. It's difficult, but it's I wouldn't trade her for the world. She's so amazing.
Well, one question I'd like to ask you is, what was it like growing up? Did you role model after your dad or your parents? How did you learn to be a dad?
Yeah, it was kind of a split way of life for me, because my parents were divorced I was very, very young when that happened. So, my dad was always around, so don't get me wrong, I would always visit him. He would always come to pick me up, or I would go visit him, for holidays. I was always with him, and then it got to a point where we actually moved. My mom and I moved to Florida, so I didn't get to see my dad all the time, but I did get to see him. On my summer, winter breaks, and that bond that we had was, I'd say it kind of dissipated over the years, where, because we weren't together on a daily or weekly basis, that there was parts of me that he didn't know about, that he didn't get to see develop. And as you know, as years went on, and as I got older, my father actually moved to the same state that he retired, and he moved down to Florida. And I'm 32 now, so having grown up and going through things that he can relate to now, such as divorce or being a dad, our between, at least my relationship with my dad and I has flourished. And he's been there for me on so many different occasions that I'm like forever indebted to him with that. But growing up, I had a great childhood, despite the fact that my parents were divorced. Always had a roof over my head, always had clothes on my back, and I have a lot of great memories, definitely, that I can remember.
I can actually relate to that because I come from a divorced family myself, and not having the really non-existent relationship with my father. So basically, when I had my son, it just feel like it was a clean slate, so I can basically make it up as I go, or just do my instincts, and just go with my instincts, and because who knows at the end, like your daughter's 2, my son's 3. Basically, I'll know in about 15 years if I actually did something right.
Yeah, I know, right? That we're just waiting for that day. It's like, okay, what are you going to become? I hope it's something successful, but no, they will, because that all this wisdom that we're injecting into them unknowingly, it's going to take over one day, and they're definitely gonna be successful. I know that much.
How did the divorce, your family divorce, your parents divorce, did it ever affect you as you were becoming a dad? Does it affect you at all, or?
Yes, it did actually, because prior to the birth of my daughter, I was actually married and divorced to another woman. So for me, falling into that statistic was a big deal. It was a big deal. I didn't want to be, go through what my dad went through and stuff like that. But luckily for me, on the other side of it, and it's got a very positive outcome, was going through that divorce. I was able to meet my now girlfriend, and we were able to have this beautiful daughter. So, without going through divorce and knowing about it and how it affects people, I wouldn't know the right and wrong ways of how to build a relationship and a family. So I've got it from both ends of the spectrum, where I know what it takes to fail, and I'll never do that again. So for me, this has been a really eye-opening experience becoming a dad.
Yeah, and what was this funny thing? I mean, when my son was born, before he was born, I was like, oh, no problem. I can handle it. I can handle this, no problem. And all of a sudden, he wheels him into me, and go, here you go. I'm like, oh boy, I got to do. Oh, what's that? What was it like when you before your daughter was born, but when your girlfriend was delivering the baby? What was it like your experience before that, and all of a sudden when they go, here you go, here's your daughter? What was that experience like for you?
I was like, I had so many mixed emotions going on. I was happy, I was excited, I was so anxious. Right before she was born, I know I was so anxious. I was like, oh my God, when's she gonna get here? When's she gonna get here? Like, I want to meet her already. I want to see what she looks like. The whole process in and of itself was, for me, made me value, not that I didn't already, but made me just appreciate and value women so much more, and what they have to go through to make these beautiful little people that are children. And so that was like the during, and then the after, like when they put her in the little the warmer and clean, after she was, they were cleaning her off, washing her. I just cried. I was like, I grabbed my mother-in-law, and I was just like, oh my God, like, what is that? Like, is this mine? Can I keep it? And I was just, I lost it. I was so happy that I just started crying. And if I think about her hard enough at any point during the day, I'll start crying in happiness, because she means that much to me.
It was funny. I mean, everybody, especially us dads, when the child was first born and in the hospital, were any funny stories of like you going a mistake or something you did that you're like, oh, I feel like the worst dad in the world for doing that? Like any mistakes in the beginning that you thought there was kind of funny stories you can tell later?
Yeah, I did something funny while we were in the hospital. Um, my doctor left his stethoscope on the computer, and at that point, your wife or your significant other is probably given drugs to help soothe them, and it kind of makes them a little loopy. So I proceeded to take the stethoscope, put it on my neck, and I recorded a video telling the world about how, don't worry, I've got everything under control, and that I've watched ER and House on TV, and I'm definitely qualified to deliver this baby. so, so I made a video of that and showed it to her later. And I think I put it. I'm almost 90% sure I put it on Facebook, and for everybody to see. And it was a big hit. It was pretty funny, and it was all in good fun. It wasn't anything malicious, but I think everybody enjoyed that. So that was kind of a fun little goofy story that happened during that time.
What does a typical day feel like as you and your girlfriend and your daughter? What is a typical day for you during the week or in the weekend? What's a typical day?
In one word, hectic. And event filled, to say the least. But I aside from doing all these side projects and podcasting and writing and stuff, and meeting other podcasters and networking with you guys, I do have a job I'm in leadership at a grocery retailer. My girlfriend actually works for the same company, and she's in management as well. So our situation is kind of unique, that we have a wonderful babysitter, a private babysitter. So between the hustle and the bustle of getting to work and having to be there and provide and everything, we're so lucky to have such a wonderful person to take care of Violet when we're not around. And we switch off with we always make compromises. She'll pick her up, or I'll drop her off, or depending on our work schedules. I mean, it's hectic, and we do a lot of running around, but our daughter's happy, and at the end of the day, all of that's worth it, to see that smile on her face. I mean, some days we start at 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on the day of the week, and we'll go till midnight. It really depends, because retail is a kind of not a 9-to-5 job, and so for us, we find a way to make it work. I don't know how some days, but we do, and that time that we do spend outside of work with each other. Today was a great example. We went to the library, we went to lunch, and we got some pizza, and being able to enjoy that time on our off days is it makes it all worthwhile.
I just got to ask you, what was the temperature today?
Oh, it was so beautiful. We've had like the most putrid, disgusting summer, and I've been in Florida for 20 years. This summer was by far the worst, and I think the temperature records will show that, and the Weather Channel definitely will reflect that sentiment. But today it was gorgeous. It was sunny out. There was a little bit of a breeze. It probably was like 80 degrees, if that. But it was days like this is what makes me love it being here. But this summer was really something. And I'm from up north. I'm from New York, and she's from up north as well. So I don't mind it when it gets cold. I definitely love it. That little cold snap for a week that we get once a year is definitely cool. But today was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous day.
I can totally. I mean, I'm from the Northeast. I'm from New Hampshire, so we're going right through. We're starting middle of fall right now, so it's getting cool in the evenings, and kind of like 60 degrees during the day. So we'll start missing the 80 degrees in a couple of weeks when the snow starts falling.
Yeah, definitely. I miss the snow. Yeah.
I was also wondering too, is also you have Daddy Diary blog. Is that about your journey about being a dad with your daughter?
Yeah, it is actually. I started that right after it was very, very close to right after the baby was born, and at first I was like, okay, I didn't find a lot of resources out there for fathers, and I was like, oh, I think it would be cool to start one, and I could compile all this information. And then over time, what I realized is that the the journey was really mine with my daughters as opposed to an informational resource for other people. But in that, I thought that, or I, it just so happens that other people can relate to the things that I write about. So it is kind of helping people in a way. And I documented the process of the hospital visit, and when we had the baby, after the delivery, and the 2 years in between then and now, growing up, having the baby grow up, and just being able to document that information to look at later, I thought was a great idea, and I definitely recommend more fathers doing something similar.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that a blog and a journal is kind of nice to have to later on down the road, that when your daughter gets older, or fathers get older, their kids get older, they can give them their daughter or son their journal, basically their blog, and they can read what happened when they were younger.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a cool medium, and no matter what type of writing you do, whether it's just a notepad or a post-it note or a blog, for instance, writing is really therapeutic. And I think, especially as fathers, when it comes to emotions, we're always perceived to be the big, tough, manly man, and we have to provide for our families and all that sort of thing. But we do have emotions too, and it's okay to get those out, and it's actually recommended to get those emotions out, because you don't want to keep those bottled up. So if you can write them down, or if you can talk them out, like for instance on a podcast or with friends or family, I think it's really important to confront those emotions, because keeping them bottled up is really unhealthy. So that's kind of what I was trying to do. I was trying to unload all those things that were going on in my head in that process.
I have another interesting question about I know that you dealt with depression, clinical depression. What is some mindset tips that you would have for people, like trying to put them in a better frame of mind?
Yeah, there's a couple that I touch on, I blog about, I talk about on my podcast, and then in the book as well. Is there's definitely a lot of things that you can at least get some temporary relief for when you're going through some tough emotional turmoil. And it can be, anger, depression. It really touches on everybody. One of the things that I like to do is get up and get out. That's the first thing. I always recommend people get up, get out. Because sun is like nature's Prozac. So being out in the sun is like a natural antidepressant, or a natural intake inhibitor, where it'll boost you up a little bit. That sunshine hitting your face. So, if you have a pet, like a dog or something, go take them on a walk, get out of that funk. And I hate when people would always say, oh, why don't you just snap out of it? It doesn't really work like that. So if you use little tools like that, like getting up, getting out, another one is like jumping in the shower. Jump in a shower, get refreshed, refresh yourself. That's another quick tip. And then the third tip for me that personally that's worked a lot has been music. I love music, upbeat, mostly pop stuff, but I have a few artists that I really listen to. But it's amazing what music can do to your overall frame of mind and well-being. So if you got some jams that you like to tune up or get pumped up to, music is always a really quick fix to get out of any funk, or to really kind of change your mind or your thoughts, or just get lost in the music. I think music is underrated, and a lot of people don't take advantage of the amazing artists out there, and lyrics and beats that are being produced on a daily basis. So if you got some headphones, put them in, turn up that volume, baby.
What type of music? Like, what artists do you usually listen to?
Me personally, I love Lindsey Sterling. She's plays violin, but she actually plays over like dubstep and like really upbeat music and beats, which is like it's amazing. It like blows my mind. So that's always fun because that one in particular, Lindsey Sterling, she doesn't have lyrics, she just plays music. So that's always wonderful. And the violin is a beautiful instrument to begin with. So Lindsey Sterling's a lot of fun. I love Blake Lewis, and I also love Savage Garden and Darren Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to like the 90s pop era, I find a lot of comfort in those poppier kind of upbeat songs, kind of before the record companies ruined everything. So those are like my three go-to, and then the fourth would be probably Modest Yahoo, who's like kind of like a reggae artist, or like modern, a little bit of reggae. That's always kind of like a fun little funky thing to kind of to mix it up. So I love those guys. They're my top four.
It's funny you say that. One of the songs my son liked when he was, especially before he was 1 year old, was Bob Marley, Three Little Birds. And
Oh yeah.
It used to always calm him down, and I'd sing it, and now he tells me, "Daddy, no more. You can't sing anymore, Daddy. No more."
Yeah, Bob Marley's great. I love Bob Marley.
Well, I don't know if we touched a little bit, but I was wondering, you also have a podcast, Me and Myself and iRadio, and I was curious, how did you come about getting that title for that podcast, for your podcast?
Yeah. Well, one, it's well, going back a couple of years ago, it was the title of like one of my favorite songs. But I also, with the whole like experience of like writing and trying to get a book written and process those emotions very early on, then like the whole concept of like the me, myself, and I elements of our of each other and of ourselves, kind of really took a strong hold. I would say the initial spark was definitely that a song entitled Me, Myself, and I. And then the whole concept of Me, Myself, and I radio was like me documenting the journey, which I'm still doing, documenting that self-discovery and self-development elements of myself. So that would be like the Me, Myself, and I, I would say like the me is your past, the myself is current day, and the I portion is what you're going to be or what you're going to do in the future. And I think that that's not just me, that's everybody. So the title itself kind of sounds self-centered, but it's actually meant to be the complete opposite of that, which is very ironic. So
One question I was interested in, because me being a new podcaster myself, and did you have any like self-doubt when you started recording?
Oh, I still do. Yeah, absolutely. I found a lot of comfort, and I learned a lot of things through YouTube tutorials. But not only that so much. I think for me, actually getting on other people's podcasts and then listening back to myself converse with these amazing individuals that I look up to actually really helped me with my own podcasting skills, because I would listen back to myself, talk to people, and I'd be like, wow, I said that kind of sounds cooler. I sounded like an idiot there. So from both ends of the spectrum, being able to just chop it up with somebody and kind of hear back yourself, because we're our own worst enemy, right? Our own worst critic. So that for me was actually where you think I would be overly self-critical. It's actually helped me to kind of take a step back and just be like, oh, let's just get on here, it's podcasts, and whatever I talk about, and finding that authentic self and connecting with people really helped me to conquer those self-doubts. But to say I've completely over it, no, absolutely not. I think that whole fear of putting yourself out there is something that's really never going to go away. You're always going to have those butterflies in your stomach, or whatever you want to call them. But it's all an evolution. It's all gonna, great things are gonna come out of it no matter what. So that's the way I kind of look at it.
It was kind of like at the podcast MidAtlantic conference when they had the creative 5-minute podcast, and me and the two other gentlemen went up there, and I had no idea what I was doing. but it was fun. It was to be creative and put yourself in an uncomfortable position because you're never going to learn if you don't put yourself out there and try.
Yeah, it was so cool. And you know what? Initially, because I knew that they were going to do that because they did that last year. Going into it, I was telling myself, "Oh yeah, that would be so cool to do." And then when I got there, I was like, I wasn't sitting near people I knew, like the people that I was, because I knew quite a few people um, through like social media and stuff like that. But the few people that I did actually get to sit next to, well, I met them there for the first time, and I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if this is such a good idea. What if we don't know what we're doing, or what if we suck, or what if we're great?" And I had all these like doubts at that current point, and then it got to the level that really like, yeah, Anthony, what do you think? What should we do? What should our topic be? And we just started like this brainstorming, and then I was like, wow, this is actually going to be awesome. And the whole process for me was kind of the same thing where, anytime getting up in front of a group of people is scary, but once you have a great support system around you and other guys or girls, I think it kind of takes that fear and it spreads it amongst all of you, so it doesn't really feel so heavy on your own shoulders. So that was kind of a cool process for me too.
It was also interesting too to meet some of my favorite podcasters, and I even when I first checked into the hotel, all of a sudden I turn around and it goes, "Hey, there goes Dave Jackson." I'm like, oh, and I'm like,
that's so funny. I did the same exact thing.
And then in the conference, I'm like, how's Bernie doing? The cat.
Right? Yeah.
And
I know it's a small world, but yeah, that was a great experience.
Well, I don't know if anything we didn't touch on. I don't know if you want to share anything you would like to touch on to kind of wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that really comes to mind. I mean, I'm glad to answer anything additional and shed some insight on it, but yeah, just it's been a whirlwind. Trying to learn how to be a dad. I think you're definitely understanding of that. So for me, it was just it's an everyday thing. I don't think it's gonna ever get easier. I think every day is gonna be a challenge. But it's our duty. It's our duty to craft these little people and mold them. So to any dad out there, new or going or soon to be dads even that might be listening, I would say that find resources, find like this podcast or other podcasts, or there may be some good books. I kind of like poo-pooed on the books earlier, but there may be some good ones that I didn't read. So I definitely would try to find resources and engage yourself in some type of dadly community. I know in our hospital that we had the baby, there was groups for fathers there, learning how to become a father, and I think they even taught you how to change diapers. So there's definitely cool resources and communities out there to involve yourself in groups and some forums and Facebook communities. So one big takeaway for the show today would be to find these other dads like you that are going through the same thing, and you'd be surprised that there's a lot of other ones out there.
I mean, actually, it's true. And then when you have a lot of mommy bloggers, and I didn't realize how big of the dad community actually is. And I want to say thank you very much, Anthony, for being on today. And where can they find you?
Oh yeah, I just rebuilt my website, and all the information I always just send people there. I don't give out all my information because you probably won't remember all of it. But the best, like the hub and the epicenter of everything I do and everything we spoke about today is at me, myself, and I radio.com. And from there you can access the blogs, the podcast, and connect with me on social media or what have you. And glad to be here today, and appreciate coming on.
Thanks, Anthony. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you do the same.
Well, thank you very much for listening to the interview with Anthony Hayes. You can find all the episode show notes over at nosittingonthesidel.com. Feel free to comment on the podcast. All comments help improve the podcast. Yeah, you want to reach out to me, any questions, concerns, you can email me at joe@nosittingonthesidel.dadpodcast. Actually, it's no sitting on the sideline. Also, you can find me on Twitter at NSOS Dad Podcast. Thank you very much for your time. Until next time, have fun, get involved with your children.